values rebounded so much when property values haven't. So the underlying values of the REITs haven't risen, but the capitalization of the REITs has. Now, there's some explanations for that. Part of it is associated with simply following the stock market. Part of it is an anticipation of improving days for commercial real estate. Part of it may be some irrational exuberance. Cap rates, on the other hand, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but this is also cap rates based on transactions prices, not appraisal prices, appraisal values. And cap rates have come down somewhat, but the worry here is if the feelings towards the performance of commercial real estate remains the same, but interest rates go up over the next 18 months, so cap rates go back up as opposed to coming back down to a more comfortable level. We'll have to wait and see. Bank stabilization. Well, banks are reporting profits. Banks are doing better, at least in terms of the bottom line, but banks aren't lending. I don't know. I don't know what your experience is in the commercial real estate market, but my guess is that where you're getting your investment dollars is not from banks. It's from other institutions. There's a lot of private money out there. And private money is looking for a decent rate of return. That's a good opportunity for commercial real estate. But the banks aren't the ones that are doing it. And to a large extent, it's the little guys that are getting hurt even more so. I haven't looked at bank credit for almost 2 months. And so I was very anxious when I put this graph together to go see, well, what have bank credit started to expand? And the answer is no, it has not. And so the banks are in a situation. Now, why do you think banks are not lending? They still, just like the Japanese banks, they still got a lot of junk on their books. That they're in a position that they really can't afford to take risk. And they just assume buy a 2-year treasury and earn 1.5% or 1. I mean, not bad to buy a 2-year treasury and earn 1.5 or 1.75% when you can borrow in the federal funds market for 0.3%. So we got a ways to go. And the ways to go is that we need to face reality. And the reality is we got to clear our books, whether they're our personal books or whether they're corporate books or the banking book. We got to clear our books of the illusions. Household savings rate, that's encouraging. You know, some of my macroeconomic friends might say that's terrible. We want the consumer to spend. The consumer cannot spend. The consumer is not in a position to lead this recovery. And we need to see that savings rate get back up towards 8%. Perhaps in the question and answer we can talk a little bit more about why that's so important. Federal debt, very discouraging. This is the Office of Budget. I kind of combined the two. They're actually very similar. These are projections from the Office of Management and Budget and the Congressional Budget Office, and both of them are forecasts for the deficits are basically the same. If you'll know, the best we do is we get the deficit running around $650 billion a year. And then it starts going back up again. We never get the federal deficit below $500 billion a year. And that's about twice as high as the worst deficit during the Bush administration. So we've got some problems that have got to be resolved on the federal budget side. And these are problems that are going to require really hard choices. You can ask me later, but I will just give you a hint that I think that the committee that the Obama administration put together to come up with some plan to balance the budget actually made a very good first attempt. It was a realistic attempt at what we were going to have to do to get this budget under control. And it was a realistic attempt. I loved how they started it off. They started off, this is going to be hard and it's going to be painful, but it is necessary. Can you imagine a world where for the foreseeable future, the U.S. never has a federal deficit less than $500 billion a year? What that will do to our economy? We can't let that happen. A lot of work done here. Here's the state story. Hard choices, and the choices are not over yet. We've got at least one more full year of very, very hard fiscal choices that state and local governments are going to have to make. And I will tell you, despite the fact that you and I know that Houston weathered the storm pretty well, we've got some serious fiscal problems for the city of Houston. We've got serious fiscal problems for the state of Texas. But our problems, as we'll hear more and more news over the next 6 months over the fiscal problems of both the city and the state, our problems are minuscule compared to the problems in other states. One of the interesting things is that our employment numbers would have looked slightly better had it not been for the fact that we've been losing something of the order of 50 to 60,000 state and local jobs a month since about June of this year. That's going to continue. We're going to continue to see state and local governments pulling back. We're going to see the city of Houston pulling back. Piece of good news, labor productivity. If you remember on that chart of how much we've accomplished, I said we've accomplished this. If you take a look at labor productivity, we're there. Here's an interesting fact that people seem to miss. If you look at every recession and every recovery, job growth never returns until labor productivity hits a new high. So here was the recession of the 70s, labor productivity plunged, then labor productivity grew and grew and grew, reached a new high, and job growth began. Here's the 80s recession, the double-dip recession. Look how far labor productivity rose, and then finally we start generating jobs. Okay? But look at us today. This is the highest we've had. This is the highest labor productivity we've had in American history. This is not only a new high, this is a substantially new high. This portends good news for the labor market in the U.S. in 2011. If we can keep the economy growing, we'll see job growth next year. Because we've gotten now to the point where businesses can afford to hire because labor has become so productive. Finally, let me just talk to you a little bit about the transformation of the American economy. Again, those of you that attended my symposiums before have heard this story before. But the most important thing that this recession is requiring of us is that we change the very nature of our economy. That we transform our economy from a consumer-based economy to more of an investment-based economy. I've shown this graph twice at university symposiums. This looks at the percent. How many times do you hear, I hear it at least twice a week, some commentator talking about consumer spending, and we can't live without growing, exploding consumer spending.